So guys, so this is a little intro before the intro of this video. This is an old video I shot before the recent video about my affordable Micro Four Thirds kit. And this camera was going to be part of that kit. So just keep that in mind when you watch it. Hope you enjoyed the video. And yeah, cheers. So guys, long time no see. How's it going? In this video, it's going to be about my trip to Budapest and this little beast, which is the Lumix GX1. So I recently went to Budapest and I wanted to take, because of luggage allowance, we tried to book the cheapest holiday we could. And if you're doing it quite cheap, you're gonna have to kind of scrimp on luggage allowance. So we booked a flight to Budapest and we were just able to take like a backpack. Now the S9 is a small camera, but it is still a little bit on the chunky side, being a full frame, and the lenses, which I have, are quite small, but not that small, and particularly not that light. So I decided to take the Lumix GX1. And I took this camera with two lenses. One I don't have on me, that is the Olympus 45mm f1.8. And I also bought this lens, which is the Olympus 9-18. Go to Budapest in Hungary. I knew we'd be visiting some really cool buildings, and so architecture in mind. There's the Danube River bank and the Parliament building, so some landscapes, castles and everything. So there's a lot of wide angle shots I had in mind, and also a bit of street photography. This does punch into 18mm, which is that 36mm mark. So 36mm is really good for street photography. So quite a good versatile lens for stuff like that. So I paired this GX1 with the Olympus 45mm and the Olympus 9-18mm. I haven't had this camera for long, so I was learning a little bit about the camera body as I was using it on the on my trip to Budapest. And a few things I really like about this is, one, it's quite comfortable to hold, and it's very small and light, even with the lenses attached. So to have this on your persons all day, and we did a lot of walking in Budapest, and the temperature was like 36 degrees on most days, so very hot. But having this on me wasn't a big deal, and it's quite an easy camera body to work out and navigate through, so that wasn't an issue at all. Now I also had this is the LV2, I believe. So it's the LV2, yeah, the LVF2, DMW LVF2, and this is the electronic viewfinder, which you can put on the top with just a click, and then you have a electronic viewfinder. Now this, I had this with for my Lumix LX7. It fits that also, which is great. And this, I did use this quite a bit. Obviously strong sunlight, bright days, so it's nice to just kind of look through and take some shots. It's not the best image you're seeing through the viewfinder, but it's enough to get your composition and focus. So that was absolutely fine. The LCD screen on the back of the GX1 is not the best, and I was taking some long exposures at one point, and I was punching in to see if I had focus, and to be honest, I couldn't really tell. It was, everything just looked a bit mushy, a bit soft. But again, the viewfinder does help because you kind of, you're a lot closer to the image through the viewfinder, if that makes sense. So you can kind of tell a little bit more without digitally punching in on the image. And a lot of images I thought were out of focus. When I loaded up on the computer, actually, they were quite sharp. So I don't want to jump around too much now because I was on about the pros. So the LCD screen is a bit of a negative, but go back to the pros. The image quality from this camera is really, really nice. If you can get your exposure bang on, you can get really phenomenal images with this, even though it is a 60 megapixel camera. Just be conscious of your composition, the focal length you're using, and your exposure. And if you can avoid pulling and pushing the image too much or cropping in too much, you'll have a really nice, stunning image. The shutter is quite loud, so for somebody who likes to be discreet on the streets, when you're kind of behind somebody and you can see a shot and you want to just fire it off and move on, it's quite a loud shutter. There is no I can't even speak. There is no electronic shutter with this as well. So two things with that is you can't do silent shooting with this, and two, you're stuck at 1/4000th of a second, which can be all right, but sometimes in the day, I did fancy some shallow depth of field with the 45mm f1.8. So to shoot f1.8 was quite tricky during the day. So I'd see some like trams, or people performing in the streets, or just a really nice scene with one subject, and I wanted to isolate that subject with the 45mm. Unless I use my ND filter, which I did take with me, unless I use my ND filter, I couldn't get that shallow depth of field. I couldn't go down to f1.8 for that shallow depth of field. I'd have to be around the f5.6 mark, because I couldn't push past 1/4000th of a second. Another thing which was frustrating with this camera was, and this is probably just down to the age, well, it is just down to the age of this camera, is the fact that you don't get the exposure preview whilst you're shooting. So you really have to pay attention to the exposure meter on the back of the screen, just to make sure your exposure is bang on. And I did miss a few shots because I wasn't paying attention. I thought I was on the right settings, with my shutter speed and what have you, but when I fired, it'd be overexposed or underexposed, and that was quite frustrating, particularly as we'd be on the streets at some point, and then we'd go into the metro system at another point, and then, if I was to look on the back of the screen, I could see it's dark and I could brighten it up. I mean, that's not a massive issue. You just got to pay attention to the exposure meter. But I've been a bit spoilt with modern cameras lately, and having that preview of exposure does really help when you're just on the go, between different areas of the city. You want to fire off shots. So I found that a little bit frustrating. The dynamic range, as I kind of touched on earlier, isn't the best with this camera. I mean, again, we're going back to the age of the camera, so that's kind of to be expected. But you can shoot really lovely images with this. It takes, what batteries are they? These are DMW BLD10 batteries, and these batteries are very good. They do last. 2 batteries is absolutely enough, and I shot quite a bit each day. The video is pretty shit. I mean, I do a lot of video work, so maybe I got a higher standard of video, like some pompous twat. But you can really tell it's a low bitrate video, and it does get a bit mushy. But the bitrate is quite low on this, so this is not a videographer's camera at all. This is strictly for photo, and aimed at people who just want a small on-the-go camera for family events. It does have a flash, so if you've got a family party, you want to snap some photos in a low-lit room, you can. And it is good for travel if you're willing to put up with how old this camera is. It'll do a good job for you. Do I recommend the viewfinder? Yeah, it's pretty decent. It does add a bit of bulk to the top though. It's quite an odd shape to it, so it can be a bit annoying when packing and pulling it out of the bag. That often gets caught, so it's not seamlessly built into the camera, obviously, because it's an optional piece. But it is useful. You can get low with it as well, which I found quite useful too, because the screen is not tiltable, so that does help with that. So it is worth looking at, to be honest. Maybe you can try one out and see if you like it, and then pick one up. But again, I've got the LX7 too, so I mainly use it for that. Another thing, actually, before I move on, you can do back button focus with this, and I have assigned the the function 2 button to be my back button focus button, which is fine if I'm doing, because it's right by there, that button there, and that's fine because you can, the back button focus way of doing things is very, very good. It helps to negate refocusing when you've locked focus, because you're taking the autofocusing function from the shutter and it's strictly at the back. So when I apply focus with a back button focus, I get focus, and then when I hit the shutter, the camera's not trying to find focus again, it's just firing off the shot. That's why I like to use it, and a lot of people do like to use it. My fridge is going to make a noise now. Anyway, I digress. But that's good to have, but the button is very close to the middle part of the camera. So if I'm doing a portrait shot, it's fine, my thumb's out of the way. But if I do a landscape, my nose, maybe it's got a big nose, I don't know, but my nose kind of hits the back of my thumb. So it's not the most comfortable to use when doing back button focus. So that's one thing to keep in mind, I guess. It is a camera that does produce good images, and I think that is your main reason to buy a camera. Can it produce good images? Yes. Functionality, it's limited for today's standards, but it's not, I don't think anybody who's just getting into photography, once they've learned the camera, I think they'll be happy with it. I think if you've been spoiled by more modern cameras and you're used to using more modern cameras, you might find this camera a little bit frustrating to use. And it is just generally slow overall. The focus isn't the fastest, and I've used this on a couple of lenses, and it can miss sometimes depending on the target and the situation. But it is generally a good camera, and I think you can't really go wrong nowadays with retro digital cameras. There's so many out there that can produce good images. Will I keep the camera though? That's the question. And I think I probably will sell it, to be honest. And I think I probably will invest the money, because I think for another £100 or so, I can get a body like the GX80. And I think the GX80 offers me a lot more for what I want the camera for. So, you know, traveling, street photography, I think the addition of in-body image stabilization will be a massive help. The silent shutter option, a big help. The ability to go to 1/8000th of a second will help too. The flip out screen I really like. It has a built-in EVF, which is seamless. It doesn't protrude like this. Albeit though, unlike the GX9 and the GX7, you can tilt the EVF, which is something which I think I could probably get around, to be honest. So I think that's a bit more suited for me, and I think I'd be a bit more, I did have the GX80 a while back, and I only sold it to pick up the G80, which I then sold. So I've been buying and selling a lot of cameras. And I was curious to try up the GX1, to be honest, and I'm glad I did. And maybe in the future I might buy it again. Who knows? But I don't think it's I just don't have that connection with it. And I have used older cameras, or cameras around the same age, like the GH2, which I absolutely love. So it's not really down to the age. I just think overall, I just can't, I don't know, I just don't connect with the camera, I guess. And some of those flaws are kind of exaggerated in my brain because I don't really connect with the camera, I guess. It's a finicky old thing when you're buying and selling cameras and using them. But it's not terrible, and I think I don't want to deter anybody from buying it if what I've said, the pros and cons, if the pros appeal to you and the cons are not too bad, by all means pick one up. But my quest continues to build a cheap Micro Four Thirds kit, and yeah, this has been a good experience overall. I've got some nice images out of it, and I've had some time with it, and I'm happy to have had the time with it. But I don't think I'll keep it. I think I can. I think there's a camera that's a bit better out there for me. So yeah, that's my phone. Sorry about that. My phone went and I forgot to finish the recording of the video, hence this different kind of setup. So Lumix GX1, I'm gonna sell it, but it's a really good camera. Let me know in the comments section down below what you think. Do you use the GX1? Do you recommend a different camera to the GX1 based on the pros and cons I give you? Yeah, let me know. Let's have a conversation. Micro Four Thirds is not dead. Let's go. Thanks for watching and goodbye.